Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you're located. Please join us, and we'll start right away. So first of all, thank you for being with us today in our first Monitoring Matters webinar of 2026. And we will show you how to catch Windows issues in minutes, not hours, with PRTG to make sure that they don't impact your users. I am Jimena. I am part of the marketing team, and I'll be your host for today. And first, let's go over a few housekeeping items as we usually do. Right now, you're all muted and your cameras are switched off, but you can ask questions using the Q&A feature, in the Zoom menu at the bottom of your screen. Marco and Steven are here and they are ready to help us answer all your questions as we go along, or if we have some time also at the end of the session. And don't worry, because if we run out of time, we will make sure to send you the answers to your questions in a few days. You can also use the emoji feature available, and please feel free to react like you just did whenever you feel like it. The session right now is being recorded, so yes, you will receive the recording along with the presentation via email this week for you to review as you want. And one last thing is that your participation is always very welcomed. So during the presentation, we will run a poll or two, and we really would like you to help us with your answers. And by the way, before I hand over to our experts, we will have our first poll. We want to know the most common way in which you identified Windows issues today. So you will see the question pop up in just a second on your screen. And it is, how do you typically discover Windows issues? The options are manual checks and scripts, monitoring alerts after failure, when the users report problems, or you think you discover them too late, or if you think there are other issues that we are not mentioning here. We'll give you a few more seconds and then we will stop. Okay, we can already see how the numbers are going up. And 5 more seconds and we will stop. Okay, done. Great, thank you for your participation. So we can see that the option that you typically use to discover Windows issues is monitoring alerts after failure in first place, and then when the users report problems. Those seem to be the most popular. Thank you for the information. And now it is time to hand it over to Henk and Paul, your speakers today, and they will give you all the details that you really want to know. Please, guys, go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for investing your time with us today. So my name is Paul Amoa. I'm one of the senior pre-sales consultants here at Paessler. I've been here for just over 6 years, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Henk. Do you want to say hi?
Hi, I do. Yes, thank you indeed for sharing your time with us. I will today present you a few sensors that you may not have seen yet. I'm with Paessler for nearly 8 years.
Perfect. Thank you, Henk. Okay, so today's agenda is on the screen now. So essentially, we're going to cover 5 areas, talking about common situations, explaining how to go from complexity within your monitoring of Windows environments to clarity. We'll then jump into a live demonstration, have a wrap up towards the end, and like Jimena said, we'll have a time for Q&A towards the end. Again, your interaction is greatly appreciated, and please feel free to use the Q&A section to ask your questions, which we'll try to answer live towards the end. So let's jump straight into it. So essentially, PRTG is a monitoring starter. So we have the ability to give you all the functionality of a monitoring tool in one place. This could be the uptime only dashboard. which consists of a simple dashboard which has ping sensors in there, give you visibility of the uptime of devices, green being good, red being down, red being bad. So essentially a device is not on the network. For Windows operating systems, we can monitor a wide range of capabilities, whether it be the compute, the application, the OS, or even the amount of bandwidth running through a particular Windows operating system. We can show you all of that within one tool. There is also a one-time setup. This means IT teams can be up and running with our products within minutes. We have the ability to run auto discovery functionalities, which means we can actually detect Windows servers or Windows desktop operating systems and actually produce monitoring there within a few moments. PRTG in daily use. Like I said, it's a tool that allows you to deploy within minutes and gathering data from multiple levels. So within a Windows operating system, that is OS level, we can go further down behind the OS and monitor the hardware level. And on top of the OS, you've got the application. All can be monitored with PRTG. In terms of basic monitoring, we can actually give you a high level in terms of compute, CPU and memory, in terms of uptime or availability with the ping sensor. But then we can also look at a bit more detailed views in terms of things like storage utilization or bandwidth utilization, for example. There is a lot to PRTG, and there's a lot more possibilities in terms of dashboarding and visibility there as well. Just going to jump into a poll just to sort of try and gauge where your monitoring requirements may be when it comes to Windows servers. And for this, I'm going to hand back to Himina.
Yes, thank you, Paul. So you're going to see the second question pop up in just a second. What's your top priority for Windows monitoring in the next 6 months? To reduce downtime and outages, to detect issues before they impact users, simplify monitoring operations, improve reporting and SLAs, or other. Good. I think that most of you already voted. Let's give you a few more seconds and we'll stop. Okay. I think we're ready now. I'll share the results and we can see that most of you with surprisingly or not so surprisingly an 80% choose to detect issues before they impact users. Thank you very much for this. And now back to you, Paul.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your interaction there. It's very helpful for us to make sure you get the most out of today's webinar. So based on your feedback, this is our goal for today's webinar. We obviously want to help you expand your Windows monitoring to gain better visibility into your system health, the services and performance, so you actually can see issues early enough before they affect users and business services. Hopefully, this webinar should inspire you to use more PRTG sensors within your monitoring environment. If you're an existing customer, for new customers, it will give you a deep dive into what is possible when it comes to monitoring of Windows systems. Okay, so let's jump into how this will actually be achieved with PRTG. We go from complexity to giving you clear clarity to detect issues before they impact your users. So let's start from the beginning. Why do Windows failures escalate? The challenge here is that early warnings can be missed. Why this happens is because small issues actually go unnoticed. Example, a small issue could be potentially every Tuesday, the CPU spikes on the Windows server. This potentially might be captured because the focus is actually monitoring on uptime and availability on actually health. So when it comes to SLA reporting, a very common thing is we want to monitor uptime, which is great, but actually we're not monitoring the health and the availability of the actual systems and applications that we're actually monitoring for that uptime. When there is a problem, we get notified a bit too late. We get notified after the fact. So the server is offline. At that point, we get notified. It is way too late. At that point, when we've actually received the downtime, that is when we actually take the time to review the logs to see what's going on. Again, this is a little bit too late. However, hopefully from today's webinar, you can see how we can proactively change the way we monitor. So what we mean by this proactiveness is that we're going to go from reaction to prevention. We're going to detect issues before services are impacted. We're going to alert on trends and outages. We're going to reduce noise in term notifications with meaningful, clear, simple, concise alerts. We're also going to fix problems during business hours as well, if this is your requirement. Because we have the ability to detect issues early enough, we can then make sure they don't affect issues during core business hours. What is supported? With PRTG, we can monitor every flavor of a Windows operating system, whether it be the server editions starting at 2016 to 2025, whether it be Windows desktop editions, Windows 10 and 11, whether you've deployed these operating systems on physical or virtual virtual machines, or depending on your workload, whether it's core infrastructure or not. The most important thing about PRTG is that we are an agentless monitoring tool. So yes, there are potentially OT environments that potentially utilize legacy operating systems from Windows, and PRTG can monitor them for you as well. Because we don't install any agents, we rely on protocols. So common protocols in the Windows space is WMI, but we also support SNMP as well, version 1 and version 2, if you enable it on the actual operating system itself. For scripting, we can utilize PowerShell. And with PRTG by default, we have a centralized core server where you'll configure and view the data that you will collect. For larger deployments, we also have a distributed architecture, so we can actually distribute the monitoring very close to your Windows servers or your desktop environments to make sure that every aspect of your infrastructure can be monitored. How we monitor, a bit more information about our portfolio. So we have Network Monitor, which is our flagship application, and the core server is a centralized core server where you actually interact, configure, and view how your Windows servers. For those distributed sites, we have remote probes that allow you to actually distribute your monitoring if needs be, depending on the size as well. Remote probes are great for scaling. We offer a host solution where we actually host the core server for you. So you have to worry about having the Windows server on-premise. We actually host it in the cloud for you. And for the very large deployments, we have Enterprise Monitor for you as well. So depending on your size of infrastructure, will be one of these 3 applications. But we have the tools in place to ensure you've got the ability to monitor your Windows servers effectively. So how do we do this? The key thing is to be able to predict the failure. So this is where we want to empower you to actually monitor earlier. So monitor health rather than uptime. So monitoring health on the Windows server can look like this. We're monitoring the CPU load, we're monitoring the memory, we're monitoring the disk performance potentially in terms of IOPS, we're monitoring free space and latency, we can monitor network throughput and errors, and we can monitor system uptime as well. In addition, we can monitor Windows services. We have the ability to reboot or restart Windows services if we notice they've stopped as well. These steps will give you the ability to predict failures early enough to be informed. As I said earlier, we can monitor Windows services. We can give you insights into the critical process availability, and obviously the ability to restart those services as and when needed. I highlighted earlier that logs are reviewed a little bit too late. Built into PRTG, we have the ability to monitor the Windows event logs, whether that be the system, application, or security event logs. We can monitor all of them. We can also filter by source or severity or ID, for example. So if you had applications that are running on these Windows servers, you can filter by the application ID, for example, or an ID of maybe failed logon. Then PRTG can inform you of those logs before the downtime occurs. I've also highlighted Paessler extensions because we have extensions within our portfolio, and one of those extensions is actually called Data Hub. So Data Hub allows us to ingest certain types of logs into Data Hub and filter and forward them based on a criteria. So this means that if you have applications that write logs, we can forward them to Data Hub and potentially back into PRTG to give you visibility in the form of alerts as to what is going on within your applications or Windows Server environments. Another key aspect of keeping uptime within your Windows infrastructure is making sure your Windows services are up to date in terms of critical updates and security updates as well. So the way we can achieve this is by making sure we've got visibility of any failed update installations, any pending reboots, or any compliance issues there as well. PRTG can give you that level of visibility, of which we'll see in a little bit. If you wanted to go a bit deeper or a lot deeper into the monitoring of Windows services, we can monitor what matters to your business. So this means that we can actually utilize things like PowerShell that can run basic or advanced checks based on the PowerShell scripts that you can create. The custom scripts can have logic built into it. So for example, if your applications have the ability to run PowerShell scripts against them, we can actually run a PowerShell script against the application and create a sensor around it. This will allow us to create business-focused validation on your environments because we've got the ability to go deep into the application and also monitor the OS as well. So now we are monitoring performance, we're monitoring health more than just the uptime on your environment. Once we've got that visibility, you want to be informed. So we want to alert on the risk and not the noise. So PRTG has a number of different notification methods to inform you of problems as and when they occur. We have the ability for you to state your thresholds for no limits, so you can actually determine when you're informed of potential issues and when you're informed of real issues, giving you the power to react with sufficient time as well. We have multi-condition alerting logic, which means you have the ability to have an event log or a message sent to first-line support for a period of time, and then if not resolved within a particular time period, this can be escalated to third-line support, for example. Again, giving you early warning before failure. Like I said, we have a wide range of different notification methods to make sure you reach the right team at the right time. This could be something simple as email, push notifications, SMS messages, webhooks integrations that integrate with things like Slack and Teams, and the ability to escalate workflows via an API, for example. Then the icing on the cake is the ability to create dashboards. So these dashboards can actually visualize lots of different Windows servers or applications into one simple view. They can be role-based views, they can be service-focused layouts, they could be operational management or visibility views. You've got the ability to customize and visualize the data that is important to you on a per user, a per service, or per application basis. Here's a great example of where we've actually looked at Windows servers, but actually looked a bit further than Windows servers and looked at the underlying hardware, the IT infrastructure, and the applications that sit on this Windows server. These are dashboards actually built into PRTG, so you've really got a clear view of what's going on within your infrastructure. I have spoken enough in terms of slides, so I'm going to hand over to Henk to actually show you what monitoring of Windows estates can look like for you live within PRTG. Over to you, Henk.
Thank you, Paul. So, if all goes well, you see my PRTG console, my web console. That's great. So this is the home page that I got assigned to. It could be any page in the product, but yeah, that is mostly used. You see that we don't have that many sensors here, a small 2,600 sensors. By the way, we are using version 114 in this demo. I have prepared a few tabs, as you can see, and I wanted to show you some extra sensors that, most people don't always use. I start here with a SharePoint device, so the application SharePoint runs on it. First of all, what is an application? That could be just a product that you install via an MSI, or maybe you still have it on an old media or something. And an application then by itself is a set of data files, files to execute programs, but also configuration files and so on. All those things need to be in place, but sometimes applications also produce temporarily files that can, well, clog the disk space or block effective processing of data. So they should not be there at some point in time. All kind of things that you need to know about an application when you want to go a little bit deeper and you want to help avoid problems. Well, with SharePoint, you would probably know that IIS is one of the important components there. And IIS is Internet Information Services, which is a modular platform. I say ASP.NET, PHP, PHP, and Windows Communication Foundation as modules that we all know. But if that doesn't work, your application in the end does not work either. So therefore, those are things that we see on more applications being used, and we have native sensors for that. Adding one, well, if you haven't seen this before, the blue bar is for filtering. As you can see on the middle, we have at this moment over 300 sensors. And I can scroll down the whole thing, but let me make it easy and I've done this before, of course, so I can use an old string that I've already put in there. I wanted to see what kind of sensors apply in an IIS environment. Typically, we have two. Let me start with the Windows IIS application sensor. And when I click that, oops, that should not happen, but that's what you get preferred. So here it is again. Now I got only two IIS, that works. There was a security feature that you have to re-log in again when you have not used it long time. So now I get an overview of the components available. As Paul already mentioned, the probe that we use goes effectively to the device that I want to work on, and therefore fetches the data. So depending on which server you connect to, you get different results. In this system, I get this list of instances. And whatever you want to take, that's depending on your needs. We already have them, but let me share point web services and create that for you. There we go, sensor is added. In the bottom, you see that we do not have yet data, hence it is gray. I can speed that up by saying scan again. And you see already some changes. So now you see it is fetching data from that device, and the probe offers it to the core and giving us these details. So we see here that bytes will receive and are sent. The status is running, so those kind of things. That is the first sensor that we have used here. I click to go back, do the same thing, and take the other sensor. The performance counters this time. You know that Windows has about 55,000 performance counters, so it's nice that you don't have a long list like that. But here, regarding IIS, you see that we have a difference between the previous sensor and the current one. But again, of course, since we talk about SharePoint, the web service is in here as well. And if I select that, add it, and refresh it, and yes, our system is configured to scan not so frequently. Now you see that we are looking at the worker processes that IIS is using, in this case, that we look at the performance counters for those worker processes. And it will take a bit before they come in and those kind of things. So maybe they come, if I scan one more time, see, at the moment, the application is not so much used in our demo center. So therefore, that is already there. Okay. If you have questions, then feel free to post questions in the Q&A. My colleagues will answer them. So jumping to a domain controller. Windows domains. Smaller and larger organizations, they have all kinds of different needs. Sometimes a small organization has both DNS and domain on one server, DHCP maybe as well. So yeah, depending on the size of your organization, you may encounter different configurations. The larger organizations may have already moved to the cloud, have a different number of domains and so on. Basically, if you have more than one domain controller, you want to be sure that all the modifications made are transferred. Well, all files, everything that are important in the process for letting people into your domain are then replicated. So when it comes to replication, we have the Active Directory replication errors sensor. It's a big mouse. Oh, it's going to offer that quite often, I see. So here it is. Do it again. And in my case, I have a second domain controller. If I had more, then you would see that. So I can only select one or deselect it and don't add. But in this case, I have a second option where I can say, this is what I wanted to monitor. And the default is, of course, based on the experience that Paessler has, and therefore I will use that. Here again, the data needs to be fetched. Let me see whether that is coming in quickly. Sometimes it takes a bit. Yeah, there we are. Oops. So you see already that the last sync attempt was 18 minutes ago and a few seconds, and there were no problems. Therefore, this banner is green. Call it. Channels may bring the sensor into a different state, may say, hey, there is a problem, and then you can look at that. And you will be notified, like Paul explained, in all kinds of ways. Well, let us add there are, by the way, some more scripts available in our hub, as we have that on our website, where you can find additional ways for other counters in domains to find. So if I took, so what's happening here, DNS. You see here, there's a DNS version 2 sensor. Well, for the people who ask themselves, why is there not a version 1 anymore? Well, the version 2 is, of course, replacing the version 1. And that happens because we are following what's being done in the market, but also we try to optimize things all the way through. We are a monitoring company. So let me find a MX record for a mail server, which is called exchange02.PRTG-demo.lan. And that is not going to be there. So when I create it, it will tell me once it got that data from that DNS that there is 0 records found, and that's not enough. Hence, this sensor is showing us a down state. So either, and I took deliberately the wrong entry, either go on the settings and change it, or go into the DNS configuration and find the problem. As it is a record, and you see we are prepared for a IP6 as well, then I have to modify that, be patient or speed it up. And there you see that this has been translated, and it took, and this time, 11 milliseconds to find it. Okay. As I mentioned before, many smaller organizations put things together because they don't buy it and it is very economic. So they put in the DHCP server on the domain controller and the domain and so on. Well, DHCP, like that. As you can see, that is not going to work because my server here is not a probe. So I cannot use this query from this server on. Therefore, I have already prepared a domain and a probe, which is not a domain controller, and that probe, and this is a remote probe, will ask that question as well. So I will say again DHCP, meaning that I will ask again. This was not meant to be. So if you have more than one network interface, then you can choose which network interface you want to use. Also, you can change the settings on how the expressions should be. I have only one card, so I will use that. Similar approach. You now see that it took 2 milliseconds to get that response, and you can also see what the addresses are, both from the DHCP server and also the offered address. They may be a bit weird because we use a tool called TemperMonkey to you. Okay. Being on that domain controller, I would also like to use the opportunity to investigate log files, Windows event files. So I type the word event. And we have again 2. And because of time, I want to use just the WMI version. You saw it just stop a little bit, that progress bar. That's because the metadata was not yet coming in. Here we have the overview of log files on that specific device. So if you do it, you might have more or less because you have a different type of logs on your system. But let me use the application log file. It has 65,000 entries. And I then want to split out things. So I can either use this for fetching, for instance, everything because of security. It depends a little bit on how you want to go ahead, or just the errors. That. Often we get the question like, can I filter by ID? And the answer is always, yes, you can. Let me use those 3 numbers, and that's enough. Now that log file is analyzed for those 3 values. This also takes a little while, and yeah, we don't have much of changes at the moment, so therefore the values will be quite close to 0, if not 0 at all. So I will now right-click and clone this. Why? First of all, a few things. I want to have it on the ID, and the first one is 4624. When people log on, I want that. I will not change the location where that sensor is being used, but in this screen, I could say, okay, I am on this remote probe, but I want to go to that device, for instance. I will use the same sensor. So I now have 2. One of the features of a clone is that it is an exact copy, and sometimes that's not handy. So what I will do is now go to settings. Okay, I already gave it a specific name, so everybody who sees this entry will know that it is for log events with that ID, but I still have to update that, of course. So I take that out, and now it's unique. Okay, done. It's not going to monitor until the moment that I say run. And now you see it changed to gray, waiting for its time to deliver data. This one is a little bit faster, but I want to pop it up as well. Come on. Yep, there we are. So you see now, as of now, it will wait for the first record to come in and then show you that. So if that value is too high, too many people trying to log in, or many people log in, that may cause be a suspicious action. So what I can do is go here, say I want to say, okay, I want to be alerted. For instance, if per second I see 25 people coming in, and the value is of course something that I just came up with, but now you see that once it is there, it's on the red zone. Maybe you feel like, okay, if it's 10 people, that is also a lot. Sometimes things happen in the morning, but maybe your organization is not that big. So I now decided to have a warning as well. Okay. For people who haven't seen that much of PRTG. So this one is specific, and that's what we see in the field as well, that people split out multiple events because that information should be separated rather than be in a bulk like you have over here. And then everything is there. You see here, this one is also without any thresholds and so on. Okay. Need to run a little bit. Windows Update. Important. So we have a server over here that supports that. IIS is used as well. And we already have 2 sensors, but let me show you a little bit how to do that. Of course, I can use WSUS, Windows Update Service, and I get 2 options. One for the patches that more or less are available and already installed. And also I want to have a little bit about how the deployment went. I will use both for you. Thank you. Okay, do it again. So over here, I can only indicate on which port I can reach my server and so on. While it's creating, I would like to mention that Microsoft has decided to stop the development of the product. So they guaranteed us, and not us Paessler, but us users of WSUS, of WSUS, as Paul calls it, that you can, for the next 9 years, because it stops in 2035, use it. Come on, yes, can you do it? You see the interval is here set to 1 hour by Paessler, because the impact of this sensor is on both sides quite big. So I will try one more time. No, it does not yet respond. And then I will do it from the device on that we already had. So the update status is over here. So you can see that the last time there was a synchronization was 3 days and 13 minutes ago, 13 hours ago, and 56 minutes. And you see as well that certain situations cause an alarm. Either it's a warning or it's even a more critical situation where severity is so high and the patches are not installed. So that should be on your focus. So in here you see that there are not many things. A problem. Severity critical, and they are missing 0. So that means that all devices are patched at the moment. So that's good. So that's happening. Okay, back to the other sensor. I have to hurry. Statistics. Again, the port, what kind of connectivity, and so on. Oh, did you see that? If you have this little eye, you can put your mouse on. You can either use the help from the server that you're on, or you can also go on the internet and then find our online manual if you need some additional information regarding that kind of sensors. Also a sensor that is causing a lot of resource demand on the other side. So if I take that, and I won't wait because of the time, I get similar lines of that. Declined updates, so many. Ooh, that's not good. You see, those kind of things. Deployment is here the issue, is here the question. Does my deployment go well? Computers needing updates, 10 at the moment. Well, we used to have 80, that's as a maximum. So 10 is not that bad. And you know how many devices you have, so you also know how much problem that could bring into your organization. Applications are bought from whoever to support you. They take away all kind of things and bundle that into an application, so that has a kind of force for your organization. Sometimes you have multiple applications that work together. So it would be good if we, as a PRTG solution, can monitor that. So for instance, if you think about a bakery where the water, the milk, the butter, the flour is going into the building on one side and comes out as a bread, as a cake, as a pumpkin, or whatever you want to call it, on the other side. If some of the modules in the whole process fail, there will be nothing as an output, so the bakery does not sell anything. So therefore, there's a whole set of applications working together on that, but think about it that way. So what I have here are access points, and these are only 2, so don't worry, it's not a whole list of access points. But what we use is a business process sensor to see whether or not my access points are right. So in the setup, you see that we have these access points. This is the name of the channel. And there are 2 access points. One of them is having a warning situation. You also see that there's an ID underneath. So what I did is already take that one with the error over here. So by itself, the device is working well. However, we have here a lookup file, and a lookup file is a translation of codes that we receive to text and actions for PRTG, does not hold a specific code. So therefore, there is this message. So if I make that a little bit bigger, you see a channel uses a lookup that is not available. So still the access point works well. But now that I'm here, I might want to say, okay, it breaks. Simulate an error. Come on, guys. This is so. Simulate an error. That's one of the things that you can try with PRTG. You don't sit here and wait until things go wrong. No, you just click the simulation bar. Refresh it. And you see now the red color that Paul was speaking about. It is now simulating a disruption. Going back to my business process sensor, I have to refresh that as well. You see at first it is there, and we're probably not in that interval, but I did check it. So when I scan it again, you see it now goes into warning, and that is the next phase, because the other, we have to wait a little bit. But if you go to settings here, you can see the sensor is already detected as down, but the percentage here is made that it is staying in a warning situation, because one of 2 is still working. So here you can see that when you kind of load balance access points, in this case, it means like, yes, you have a degradation, but still everything is good. Okay. Similar to that, I have here a little bit more commercial part, a website. So there's a web server, as you can see. The web server speaks to a database. You know that when you want to buy something from internet, you have to log in, and that database holds your first of all your username, password probably, but also it holds items that you can order and whether they are available or not. So again, everything is green, and each and every component could be in a down state or in a warning state. I'll show you that here. We have taken a few IIS sensors. We could have gone beyond that with HTTP sensors, of course. We have 2 machines running SQL, probably a cluster. And here we have one Synology device. And you see this is a device where here are sensors, and you can combine it as much as you like. I mentioned that you can extend that. Just click on the plus and you see the whole device tree, and you can just find the sensors that you think are participating in this process. Like I did before, I want to show you effect of problems. So I will again simulate. If I have to do that again. So simulate. It says simulate, and because of time I refresh it, and you will see in a few seconds that it goes to down. And why didn't I stop here? Because this should be the effect. We very often hear that people get too many messages about the problem. I was monitoring the disk, and I get the fact that there is a problem. I was monitoring the CPU, we get and so on. Well, in this case, you could have, if I go scroll down, 39 different messages about this server, whereas either a cable from the network device is disconnected, or there is a different interrupt in that whole network configuration, and you might have probably done well. But here you get only one message. So that means that, and also because it's a ping, that means that the probe cannot contact that server anymore. So your problem noise is reduced to just one message. That is a good thing. Going back to my ecom overview, you see that the last scan was 11 minutes ago. I will force it a little bit. There we go. And now you see as well that the storage is down, and that means that the global status is like there is a big problem. And here you see no color change because there's only a device in there, and that has multiple sensors, as you have seen before. So why is this the way it is? If I say resume, that is because this ping sensor is marked as the most important sensor for that device. You can do that manually, or it is done automatically by device templates. And that is a very big power of PRTG. The device template is already then bringing you, did I not uncomment it? Resume, no, sorry, my bad. So the device templates makes that it is going to restrict the number of messages. So these uptime sensors will be going back to normal. Well, here ends my presentation. So I hope you have seen something you didn't know before. Are there any questions that we are going to do? Paul, did you have a look? Or?
Yes, thank you. And what I would do is that I'll take control of the screen again.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
So thank you for that, Henk. So just to wrap up today's session, just wanted to take a few takeaways from what we have presented today. So hopefully you've understood when it comes to monitoring Windows environments, We can monitor from small to large organizations, giving you clear clarity on how the health and uptime of your applications and Windows servers are operating. We hopefully give you the ability to support your company's security policies by looking at events, for example, and give you fast recovery times and reduce your overall disruption to end users' applications, giving you a good service for your environment and infrastructure. This, time permitting, will allow us to go to our last section for today, which is the Q&A, of which I will hand over to Himna.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, we're a little bit over time actually, but I see that most of our attendees are still around. So let's do at least 2 questions. The first one I see here is, how do we get past firewalls for networks that do not allow direct access to the Windows systems, except for their external IP address if we do that? Who would like to help us?
Yeah, I can take that one. So essentially, the PRTG architecture allows you to deploy something called a remote probe. So you have the option to determine where this remote probe lives, whether it be very close to your Windows servers on the inside of your network, or potentially on the other side of your firewall on the outside of your network. So if it's the external IP address, there'll have to be some level of NAT translation there if you're doing it on the outside of your firewall. However, what we'd recommend is that you deploy a remote probe on the inside of your firewall, very close to your Windows servers, to allow you to monitor locally, and then you just open up 2 ports on your firewall to connect back to the core server, which is on the external side of your network. That'll be our recommendation. However, I'd recommend reach out to us at pre-sales at Paessler for additional information there as well. Thank you.
Okay, and then one more before we end the session. Can we check Windows Server failure like DFS with this?
Yes, 100% yes. So DFS specifically, where you'll achieve that is most probably with a script that will monitor things like DFS replication, and that can be run, and then PRTG can have the response from that script to give you the correct value in terms of if replication is running correctly or not. Good question.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Paul. And so now, before we just click the shutdown button, our next Monitoring Matters session will take place on February 18th. So we want you to be aware. And this time we will review how to catch Linux issues with PRTG. And you can follow the link on the slide that will take you where you can register, but we will also be sending you an invitation soon. And that said, thank you again for being with us today. Remember that you can always reach out to us at sales@paessler.com, and your feedback is very important. So when we close this session, a quick 2-minute survey will pop up, and we really would appreciate your participation. And finally, look out for the email with the recording, the presentation, and other useful links going out this week. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.